Hey boyos! Alright, this is going to be a quick review of the brand new shiny Cyclone Autocannon. I'm going to check out its strengths and weaknesses, do some theory crafting about what its strongest build setups are going to be, and I'll do some side-by-side comparisons of weapons that fill similar roles too. Straight up disclaimer right at the start, the whole point of this video is to see whether the weapon's going to be Clanwars viable or not. So information I'm talking about and my ideas of whether this is a good weapon or not may not be relevant if you're just intending to use this thing for a bit of fun at maximum power score, or even with just one of them in the lower ranked games. So if that's you, some of this stuff I'm going to talk about is pretty flexible for you. It seems there's quite a lot of videos knocking around attempting to review this bad boy, but they mostly seem to talk a bunch of rubbish, so I'll try not to do that. Okay, let's do this. This is going to be my first weapon review, so I hope you boys like. The Cyclone is a pretty decent weapon looking at its stat lines. I won't read them out to you, I'm sure you've done that already, but 5 energy for those stats is crazy good. Plus, on top of all that, it looks super cool. It's got recoil dampeners, look at those bad boys, that's awesome. And it sounds just straight up savage. To get an idea of how good this thing is, I have a bunch of tests set up to compare them to some other similar weapons. Okay, first let's get rid of this 2 Cyclone versus 3 Cyclone question. As you can see, 3 Cyclones plus a Radiator, which is your 16 energy, has slightly higher DPM against this 3k durability box thing. That's nice and all, high damage is always nice, but to kill someone a second or two quicker, sacrificing a stupid amount of utility and structure. For that 5 energy for a third gun, you can take a second Radiator, which you need, a Chameleon, which you definitely need for Clanwars. You could use a Humpback to give you way more tonnage, way more structure, and possibly the best passive in the game. And you still have a spare energy point for an engine, radar, another Radiator, pick one, they're all good options. So yeah, that should have set the triple option on fire pretty efficiently. Buying 3 is going to cost you way more money for a much worse build. Just don't do it. Sweet, okay, it's comparison time. In my eyes, the Cyclone build is going to have 2 main competitors for Clanwars team slots, which is going to be Dual Reaper and Quad Tackler Brawler tank type things. These 2 incredibly annoying beasts are both very strong and versatile in the current Clanwars meta, so if Cyclones can compare well to them, they should be in a good place. And of course, they're all going to fill the same role, which is basically weapon stripper and sustained damage dealer. Righto, test 1 is going to be a straight up damage output test at short and medium ranges. I want to test long range DPS for 2 reasons. First, in a Clanwars situation, no one is going to sit there like a lemon while you pounding them at a long range. And second, the Cyclone would very clearly win that test anyway, because Reapers and Tacklers both have damage fall off, and Cyclones don't. For this test, all 3 builds are firing at a 3000 structure target at short range. The Cyclones are a bit closer, but they deal the same damage at any range, so that's not really important. Each of the builds is using 2 improved radiators, which is a normal amount for a Clanwars build, and as you can see, Reaper has destroyed its target first, followed by the Cyclone, and then the Tacklers last. In my opinion, that's a really good result. It means that they've got the raw damage to compete, and you got to remember, dual Cyclone's only 10 energy compared to 12 for the other 2. Alright, now I'm going to do the same test again, but at a longer range. At this range, all 3 weapons are still effective, but things like weapon spread and trigger control are going to be a factor too. As you can see, at this range the Cyclone's still really accurate at maximum fire rate, and there's no change in its damage output. The Reapers are still maintaining some good damage, but I'm having to release the trigger occasionally to maintain accuracy. And at this range the Tacklers are sort of struggling a bit with damage fall off, and I'm having to tap fire to keep the crosshair bloom low. Yep, Tackler's definitely not very strong at this range. So after the first 2 tests, it's looking pretty good for the Cyclone really. It's got really impressive long range damage potential, and it's not really suffering at the shorter ranges like the Whirlwind does, for example, because of that passive. For test 3, I'm going to see what sort of degunning potential Cyclones have at your average brawling range. Quick degunning is mega important in Clan Wars, and both Tacklers and Reapers are strong degunners. So it looks good for the Cyclone if it can get close to matching them in efficiency. As the test targets, we've got a boxed-in Reaper, a Mammoth Cannon, and a boxed-in Tackler, all of which are really common weapons for a Clan Wars brawler. So let's see how they do. I'm running the test the same way as last time. All 3 vehicles are the same distance from the target, but I am taking the Reaper's spin-up time into account this time, so it did start shooting after the other 2. And as you can see, the Tackler's lack of any spin-up or damage ramp time means it's the quicker degunner of the 3, followed very shortly by the Reaper, and the Cyclones then coming in last. In my opinion, the results were close enough together that they wouldn't really make much of a difference in an actual fight. And of course I did stop firing between each target with the Cyclones. If I hadn't done that, it would have actually finished a whole 2 seconds quicker, getting pretty much the exact same time as the Tacklers. So after that test, it's still looking really good for the Cyclone. Right, before I go on to the final test, a bit of a problem just came up this morning. I started the game up 10 minutes ago, and we have a hotfix. And guess what? They've decided to nerf the Cyclone's damage by 10%. They did also combine it with a 10% faster cooldown, but that's really not going to offset the damage loss, so it's a nerf. I don't think it's a huge deal really. The Cyclones have so far been pretty competitive with the other 2 Clan Wars setups, regardless of them costing less energy. Do I think the nerf was needed? At 10k plus power score, no, definitely not. But I'm guessing they were really strong in lower PS games. They are already like 325 power score lower than a Reaper, and they don't need all those ammo boxes as well like the Reaper does. So I'm guessing that's where this nerf's coming from. It's just another example of the developers nerfing a weapon's effectiveness because it's strong at low PS, rather than simply increasing the weapon's goddamn power score, you know? I mean, isn't that the point of power score in the first place? Anyway, yeah, that's happened. I've gone back and added the new post-nerf times into the last tests. I'm not going to lie, they've damaged its chances of being a viable Clan Wars weapon a bit. But, you know, let's continue on and see where we go. Right, with that rubbish done with, we'll get on with the final test. I was planning on comparing hitbox size versus durability at this point, but all 3 are similarly efficient in this department. Reapers and Tacklers are a bit easier to hide with armour, but the Cyclone does have much more durability to compensate for that. Instead, I'm going to look at the potential build setups available for the 3, because I think that's where the real strength of the Cyclone is going to come from. So test 3 is going to look at like possible support systems and general build versatility. Both Reaper and Tackler builds are pretty much the exact same in this regard. 2 Reapers or 4 Tacklers is going to cost you 12 energy for the weapons. It's of course possible to take 5 Tacklers plus a Radiator on the Quantum or Step Spider, but you can get the same 25% damage boost from the Humpback passive, while still having 2 energy for other gear, and tanky builds don't do well without a Chameleon in Clan Wars. So yeah, basically there's a reason that people don't use 5 Tacklers in Clan Wars, and it's a good reason. 4's better. So, for both Reapers and Tacklers in Clan Wars, your energy will be coming from a Humpback plus an Apollo, giving you 15 energy, and that's going to leave you 3 spare. 1 point's needed for a Chameleon, that's not really debatable in the current meta, and you definitely need at least 1 Radiator, so that's 1 energy point available that's semi-flexible. So your options are, for that final energy point, take an engine, Cheetah or Colossus namely, the passives are both helpful, and you're going to get improved speed plus acceleration, and more tonnage and or maximum mass for extra structure. Or you could take a Hot Red plus either a second Radiator or a Radar, if your team can't get one somewhere else, that is. Not very flexible to be honest, are they? But Cyclones on the other hand, now that's a different story. We've established in the previous tests that they're totally comparable as far as damage output and efficiency goes, but they only need 10 energy points. That 2 spare energy really does allow for some pretty impressive build options. I'm going to use 88s as a placeholder for the Cyclone, seeing as I'm not going to go out and pay 4k for them. I'm not crazy. So that's what they're doing there. The most straightforward option you're going to have is to use something similar to a Reaper setup, but you've got no need for ammo boxes, and you don't have to choose between engine, radar and second radiator. You can just take all 3. Definitely going to be a solid build. You can drop the radar whenever it's not needed and take a 3rd radiator, or even a scope, which is really helpful when you're trying to throw a team together amongst your clan. You could even take the chameleon, 1 radiator and a hot red, and that's going to leave you 3 spare energy for an Aegis or even like a porcupine or something. And when you decide to use a 16 energy setup rather than a 15, you've got some even more interesting options. With 6 spare energy, you could take your radiator, engine and chameleon, leaving you with 3 spare energy. So again, you could take the Aegis or the porcupine, not maybe the strongest option on the ground, but if you can make hover cyclone work for you, then that's a different story. The recoil isn't half as bad as with Reapers, so dual cyclone hover actually looks okay. To have a decent chance of surviving with a build like that, you're going to need the Aegis, but if you're confident with your positioning, you could take a porcupine for an interesting support build. Anyone you catch by surprise with that sort of setup isn't going to last long. You could even, if you really wanted to go crazy, use a radiator, chameleon and hot red and take an aurora to potentially double your damage. That's one that I can't actually test yet because no one seems to have tried it. There's nothing on the exhibition with that setup, but it's got to be good. Sounds good. Come on guys, how's no one tried that? Admittedly, that's probably not going to be Clan Wars good, but it'll be good fun for some normal matches. Okay, so I'm going to summarise and end the video here because it's starting to drag a bit in my opinion. From my testing, Cyclones are not going to change the Clan Wars meta much, especially after the damage nerf. But I do think that a well built Cyclone vehicle will be perfectly viable, and there'll be a convenient place to take a team's radar for example. Optimal build setups probably going to be a 16 energy spider build or 15 energy humpback with the Cyclones protected in a similar way to a side Reaper. They're competitive with Reaper and Tackler brawlers, similarly powerful at close ranges while being much stronger at long range. The big problem they'll have is the size of the weapon themselves. Cyclones are a big target for cannons and crickets to strip, and that spin up time means that they won't be able to use that ranged power for much other than breaking people's cloaks and suppressing fire. I'm inclined to see Cyclones as a bit of a versatile support build really. Handy in a variety of situations but not really a master of any, and I will definitely be picking some up once they rotate into the faction workbenches. Right, that's it. Thanks for watching. Drop me a comment or whatever if you think I'm talking a bunch of rubbish, and like and subscribe and things if you think I'm on point. And I'll see you boys in game.